In 2009, a man named James Howells threw away $400 million worth of Bitcoin. He started mining Bitcoin at a time when the currency was practically unknown. His diligence resulted in an accumulation of 7,500 Bitcoins, coins that were worth less than a cent each at that point. However, his luck changed. Pressured by his girlfriend, who considered the mining computer too noisy, Howells stopped the activity. The result was catastrophic. The hard drive containing the key to his fortune was discarded in the trash. Today, this singular mistake represents a loss exceeding $400 million. The recovery of this wealth depends on a single item, that hard drive. Why? Because Bitcoin is not a physical asset stored in a bank. It exists via a digital wallet, the wallet file, on that disk. Without that specific file, the money is irrecoverably lost, since there is no central authority or server to reverse or log the transaction. Another famous story is that of László Hunyecz. In 2010, László performed one of Bitcoin's most celebrated transactions, the purchase of 2 pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoins. The cost at the time was about $35. This transaction, though not the first, became the most widely publicized landmark. Currently, the value of those delicious pizzas is estimated at $500 million. This story inspired a global celebration. Yes, May 22nd is known as Bitcoin Pizza Day. It is the fascination of these anecdotes of rise and fall that makes Bitcoin such a captivating phenomenon. Its recent growth and adoption are, at the very least, surprising. Nevertheless, the origin of Bitcoin, the how it came to be, is equally intriguing. Although Bitcoin is young compared to traditional forms of store of value, the fundamental concepts of cryptography are surprisingly old. Where ultimately did Bitcoin come from? And crucially, who is the mysterious individual who invented it? Sit back, relax. We at Finance Legacy are going to unravel this mystery. For many, Bitcoin is still viewed with suspicion, a fad, a Ponzi scheme doomed to vanish. The cryptocurrency has, in fact, accumulated a controversial reputation thanks to notorious scams like BitConnect and OneCoin, in addition to its initial use for illicit transactions on the Silk Road. The proliferation of imitation cryptocurrencies, without any regulation at the level of the underlying asset, Bitcoin itself, contributes to the skepticism. Critics label it worthless artificial gold that would merely facilitate illegal activities. However, the perception is rapidly changing. People have begun examining our economic system with increasing distrust. The continuous creation of currency, the so-called money printing, the rise in prices and bond yields signal inflation. The historical reality that the long-term value of all fiat currencies tends towards zero suggests that financial problems may be looming. There is an urgent need for new approaches in monetary policy. The Nobel laureate economist Friedrich Hayek already noted in 1984, "I don't believe we shall ever have a good money again before we take the thing out of the hands of government. All we can do is by some sly, roundabout way introduce something that they can't stop." Bitcoin, despite its imperfections, broadly achieves this goal and, as we shall see, cannot be stopped. Think of a traditional bank transaction. You pay a store with a card. The store consults the bank to verify the funds. The bank checks its records, debits the amount, and charges a fee for the service. The bank is the trusted intermediary that maintains the record. Now, what if you wanted to remove the bank for this equation? Who would you trust to keep the record intact without fraud? No one would trust a single person. The solution is to trust a vast collective. The central idea of Bitcoin is the decentralization of the transaction record. Multiple copies of the record are distributed worldwide. Each participant holds a copy and records every transaction. When a purchase is made, the store does not consult a bank, but rather the network of records, the collective, to verify the balance. After the purchase, all record keepers update their copies. If an individual transaction appears fraudulent, it is rejected because it disagrees with the majority of the records. This vast network of verifiers is not human, but rather a network of computers. The result? There is no need for third parties like banks because the decentralized network is self-regulating. This means zero blockages, zero server shutdowns, or prevented payments, as the transactions occur directly between people. They can be traced, but they cannot be stopped. The miners are the individuals or entities that keep the network active. They compete to solve complex equations, creating blocks that contain all recent transactions. A block is like a page in the ledger. For the effort of mining and validating these blocks, miners are rewarded in Bitcoin, similar to gold mining. Like gold, Bitcoin has a finite supply to prevent it from devaluing, which is the opposite of fiat currencies. Only 21 million Bitcoins will be created, with the last one predicted to be mined around 2140. What gives Bitcoin its value? Ultimately, it is worth what someone is willing to pay for it. The possibility of the price dropping to zero exists if confidence is lost, but the underlying concept is fascinating. There is a strong argument that the true value of Bitcoin lies in the trust and utility of its network, the system it created. The price is merely the fluctuating assessment of that value. A useful concept here is blockchain. It's a kind of database, or more precisely, a distributed ledger. In certain applications, such as for internal bank systems, this might just be a database upgrade that drastically improves efficiency. But when you make a blockchain public and decentralized and add a cryptocurrency, you create something that distinguishes it. This creation is an offshore banking system accessible to everyone, fundamentally disruptive at financial, economic, and even potentially political levels. Bitcoin is open source, which allows anyone to examine or propose modifications. It's a misconception to think the code is static. Maintenance is constant and is done through Bitcoin improvement proposals. To prevent someone from inserting malicious code, such as hypothetically giving 1,000 Bitcoins to every viewer of Finance Legacy, but if that happens, don't forget to already be following the channel and leaving your like so you don't miss out on this historic transfer. The core changes require a 95% consensus among the last 2,000 miners. It is essentially a digital voting system. On January 3, 2009, the Genesis block, the first Bitcoin block, was mined. Inside it was embedded a special message. The Times 3rd of January 2009, Chancellor on the brink of second bailout for banks. This inscription was not accidental. It serves as a declaration of purpose. Bitcoin was born as a direct response to a failed financial system, specifically the 2008 crisis. Just 9 days later, the first Bitcoin transaction was completed between the creator, Satoshi Nakamoto, and the cryptographer Hal Finney. They exchanged 10 Bitcoins, coins that were worth less than a cent each at that point. Nakamoto presented his invention to the world, a new economic system, on July 9, 2009, through a cryptography mailing list. Hal Finney was crucial in the early days, helping to fix flaws and strengthen the code's security. Although these milestones define the creation and initial application of Bitcoin, the story of its origin is much older. To understand it, we need to go back more than 2 decades, to 1983, when the American cryptographer David Chaum was already exploring the concept of electronic cash. Chaum was part of the Cypherpunks movement, activists who championed the use of cryptography as a powerful tool for individual privacy. They were essentially digital libertarians, seeking a more secure and anonymous transaction system. Chaum's work resulted in the invention of the blind signature protocol, a fundamental advance that laid the groundwork for modern blockchain technology. He himself explained, the blind signature could be used to prove credentials about you, age, license, without revealing your identity or sensitive details. Chaum continued his work and in 1989 founded DigiCash. The company launched eCash in 1993, allowing the secure and anonymous transfer of money over the internet. eCash was conceived as an alternative to the practices considered unsafe with online credit cards. Despite the technical perfection of eCash, Chaum's work was risky. The U.S. government viewed cryptography as a threat. Chaum's colleagues received secrecy orders, making it a federal crime to discuss their research. The NSA even wrote to scientific associations advising them not to hold conferences on cryptography. Chaum risked his freedom to set cryptography free. At its peak, eCash attracted enormous attention. There were rumors that Bill Gates offered $100 million to integrate eCash into Windows 95. Chaum, due to his stubbornness and distrust, declined this and other offers. He prioritized eCash's perfection, believing that the difference between good and bad digital cash would determine whether we would have a dictatorship or a real democracy. Due to internal conflicts, Chaum lost control of DigiCash. The company tried to sell its products to banks, but the majority preferred the lucrative credit card model. In 1998, DigiCash went bankrupt, marking the end of the first wave of digital currency. The world didn't seem ready for cryptographic money, but progressive thinkers continued to see the potential. The economist Milton Friedman declared in 1999 that eCash was necessary for the internet and would be a logical tool to limit government overreach. He believed that monetary policies should be established by a computer, immune to human corruption. In the mid-1990s, the market was flooded with cryptographic companies, but the NSA also published a paper describing its own cryptocurrency. However, it required a centralized bank, which went against the spirit of the movement. Several crucial ideas emerged on message boards. B-Money by Wei Dai in 1998 was a theoretical system for online economies, free of regulation, but it never became reality. The most significant idea, the missing link of Bitcoin, was BitGold, proposed by Nick Szabo, an ex-DigiCash employee, in 1998. Sabo proposed that digital currency should be a valuable commodity in itself, granted to miners for completing cryptographic equations. BitGold's innovation was the complete distancing from bank dependence. Sabo said, "I was trying to mimic as closely as possible in cyberspace the security and trust characteristics of gold, and chief among those is that it doesn't depend on a trusted central authority." Although BitGold was theoretical and had flaws, such as less concern with privacy and technical mining problems, it was the essential building block. After all these attempts, the cryptographic money community entered a relative silence that lasted almost a decade. On August 2008, the domain bitcoin.org was registered anonymously. In October, the paper Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, was posted to a cryptography mailing list, signed by Satoshi Nakamoto. This paper established the fundamental outline of Bitcoin and initiated a chain reaction that rewrote financial history. What differentiated Bitcoin from all previous attempts was the overcoming of the double spending problem. Digital money, being just data, could be replicated, allowing a single coin to be spent multiple times. In the past, this required a trusted third party, the bank, to oversee, which Nakamoto and Sabo rejected. Nakamoto's solution was to implement an updated record, the blockchain, of who owned what and what time. This allowed for a system of electronic transactions without relying on trust. With the problem solved, the system was launched. In July 2010, Bitcoin began trading at $0.008, rising to $0.08 by month's end. Initially, interest was almost nil. The first mention of Bitcoin on Reddit in 2010 was downvoted. The first mention on TV was in the show The Good Wife in 2012, when the price was $3.41. But some visionaries persisted. Chamath Palihapitiya in 2013, when Bitcoin was at $135, saw the disruptive potential. Owning that currency and allowing water to find its level, particularly in the developing markets, is huge. It doesn't matter what happens in the United States, it matters what happens in Argentina, in Venezuela, in Kenya, in Brazil, in India, in Russia, in China. He believed that Bitcoin would be born out of people's desire for unfettered access to capital in countries with instability. Despite solving the central problem of electronic cash, Satoshi Nakamoto chose to remain mysteriously anonymous. On April 26, 2011, he sent his final verified email and vanished. Satoshi still owns about 1 million Bitcoins that remain untouched in his digital wallet. If the price of Bitcoin were to reach $197,000, an achievable value in future highs, he would become the richest person in the world. The mystery surrounding Satoshi continues to fuel speculation. The Bitcoin narrative is now intertwined with the traditional financial world in ways that were previously unimaginable, validating Nakamoto's original vision. Institutional adoption and ETFs. In January 2024, the SEC, U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, approved the first Bitcoin spot ETFs, exchange-traded funds. This was a watershed moment that legitimized Bitcoin as a world-class asset, allowing billions of dollars in institutional capital to flow into it through traditional platforms like Fidelity and BlackRock. This approval signals the acceptance of Bitcoin by Wall Street and major regulators. The halving event. The fourth Bitcoin halving occurred in April 2024. This programmed event cut the reward miners receive in half, decreasing the supply of new Bitcoins in circulation. This mechanism, embedded in the code, reinforces Bitcoin's scarcity and is historically associated with price bull cycles, validating Szabo's concept of digital gold. Adoption by governments and central banks. Many central banks are now exploring central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, inspired by blockchain technology, but with the centralized nature that Bitcoin was designed to combat. Although these are not Bitcoin, their existence is undeniable proof of the need for innovation in global monetary infrastructure, an idea advocated by David Chaum decades ago. In countries with high inflation, such as Argentina, the adoption of Bitcoin and stablecoins as a personal store of value has grown exponentially in 2024. Integration into commerce and payments. Visa and MasterCard have significantly expanded their cryptocurrency integration projects, allowing millions of merchants to accept crypto payments. Global platforms like PayPal and Apple Pay now offer Bitcoin purchase and custody services, making it accessible to hundreds of millions of users. Bitcoin is no longer a message board experiment. It is a global financial asset and a censorship-resistant monetary network. Bitcoin's price is now a topic of discussion in corporate boardrooms and political forums. Who is Satoshi, and why did he vanish? Thank you for watching. I hope you learned about the deep roots of this technology. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and leave your like if you appreciated our work. And if you're interested in knowing the secret of why the rich continue to get richer, leaving you poorer and poorer, I recommend watching this video here, also produced by us at Finance Legacy. Until next time.